The three stages of solution-focused pastoral counseling can be described as encounter, engagement, and disengagement. While many counseling models describe their stages by such task-oriented terms as problem definition, goal development, and intervention, relational language better reflects the essential personal nature of pastoral counseling. Pastoral counseling is not something one person does to another person. Rather, it is something one person does with another person. The essence of Christian soul care is lost when we view counseling as something mechanical or technical. Pastoral counseling is something deeply personal and relational. It is a relationship built around dialogue and genuine encounter. The first stage of solution-focused pastoral counseling is called encounter. It corresponds with the initial meeting of a pastoral counselor and the one seeking help. The pastoral counselor's goal in the first session is to establish a personal contact with the person, set boundaries for the counseling relationship, become acquainted with the person and his or her central concerns, conduct a pastoral diagnosis, and develop a mutually acceptable focus for the work they will do together. Engagement is the second stage in solution-focused pastoral counseling. The pastoral counselor and the parishioner roll up their sleeves and get down to the hard work of counseling. This normally occupies the next 1 to 3 sessions and involves the exploration of the person's feelings, thoughts, and behavioral patterns associated with the problem area, as well as the development of new perspectives and strategies for coping and change. The third and final stage, disengagement, occurs in the last 1 or possibly 2 sessions and involves an evaluation of progress and an assessment of remaining concerns, a referral for further help if needed, and the termination of the counseling relationship. Encounter is a term sometimes used to refer to an unexpected or casual contact. For example, a chance encounter between 2 strangers on a train. This meaning, however, misses the richness of the concept. As used by Buber, an encounter refers to a meeting of 2 people who relate to each other not as an impersonal it, but as a personal thou. It is this deeply personal meaning that describes the first stage of solution-focused pastoral counseling. The foundation of a helpful pastoral encounter lies in the personal qualities of the pastoral counselor. 3 characteristics that are especially important: empathy, respect, and authenticity. Although these are valuable traits in and of themselves, in solution-focused pastoral counseling, they are not the end, but the means to the end. The end is a relationship in which 2 people meet in a place of respect and dialogue, and by so doing increase their attentiveness and responsiveness to the Spirit of God, who is the third party in the encounter. Empathy, respect, and authenticity, while ways of relating helpfully to others, are not mere techniques. Empathy is not something one does. It is not merely a formula for listening. Rather, empathy is a posture of openness to the experience of another person and may be communicated by reflecting back to the other person what one is hearing. Respect involves communicating a deep valuing of the other. Ideally, it involves the absence of judgmentalism and conditional acceptance. Respect is not a denial of personal judgments, for these are inevitable and an important part of human functioning. It is, however, a result of seeing a fellow human being as God does, as an image bearer of God, and therefore a person of extreme worth, even if this image is marred by brokenness and distorted by sin. Authenticity is a state of being real or genuine. It is the foundation for both empathy and respect. Together, these three qualities form the bedrock of any pastoral encounter that is to become a genuinely helpful counseling relationship. As noted earlier, the initial encounter of a pastoral counselor and a parishioner usually occurs prior to the first counseling session as a part of some other facet of pastoral care and ministry. The counseling encounter, though, differs in purpose and structure from the previous contact and builds on what has gone on before. The second stage of solution-focused pastoral counseling involves the engagement of the pastoral counselor and the person seeking help around the problems that brought them together. This is the heart of the counseling process. The term engagement emphasizes the fact that the pastoral counselor is now deeply involved with the person, and they are working on these problems. Genuine pastoral counseling can never be mere advice offered from the sidelines. Pastoral counseling is always incarnational. That is, the pastoral counselor comes to the one seeking help and makes him or herself available to be used and even sometimes abused in the process. Pastoral counseling is not only personal, but also costly to the pastoral counselor. But if safety is sought by remaining on the sidelines or somehow hiding in objectivity, little help is communicated. It is important to note that the work at this stage may well begin in the first session. The model should not be interpreted in a rigid or mechanical manner. If the goals of the first stage are completed, with time remaining in the first session, the pastoral counselor can begin the tasks of the next stage. Once the tasks of stage 1 are complete, those tasks associated with stage 2 become the central focus. There are two major tasks. First, exploration of the feelings, thoughts, and behaviors. And second, the development of new perspectives and strategy for coping and change. By now, the pastoral counselor and parishioner are hard at work on the parishioner's problems. Whereas in the first stage, the pastoral counselor and client could be pictured facing each other and establishing a trusting relationship, in the second stage, they are standing side by side with concerns brought by the person seeking help. The pastoral counselor comes alongside in the same manner as is conveyed by the New Testament word paraclism. This word suggests the action of coming alongside someone to give support. God Himself is pictured as the God of all coming alongside, the God of all comfort. This is the model of the pastoral counselor. Although the person's feelings, thoughts, and behaviors are usually intertwined, a selective focus on each, one at a time, ensures that each is adequately addressed. Such a method also ensures that all the crucial dynamic of the person's psychospiritual functioning are considered. Because feelings, thoughts and behaviors are intimately connected to one another, the starting point may seem somewhat arbitrary. An exploration of feelings is usually the best place to begin, and this should genuinely be followed respectively by an examination of the thoughts and behaviors associated with the feelings. Ending a counseling relationship should be made easier by recognizing that pastoral counseling is not the encounter, an engagement simply of two people, but of two people with God. The God who is present in the moments of deepest pain, confusion, and despair is a God who does not depart at the end of the fifth session. God will continue to be present as the parishioner goes on with life. But the counseling sessions do need to end, and the last stage of work together involves preparation for this event. The evaluation of progress is usually a process that both pastoral counselor and parishioner will find rewarding. Some evaluating may be done in earlier sessions, but it is still a good idea to use the last session to undertake a brief review of what has been learned through the experience. Closely associated with this evaluation, of course, is an identification of remaining concerns. Seldom is everything resolved after 5 or fewer sessions. This means that the parishioner is preparing to leave counseling with some work yet to be done. The parishioner does so with goals and plans for the future, and the development of these is an important task of the disengagement stage of solution-focused pastoral counseling. As mentioned earlier, it is often advisable to take a break of several weeks before the final session. The parishioner can then work on the goals set in the engagement stage, returning for a concluding session to evaluate progress, reflect on the experience, and adjust goals and strategies if necessary. The final session should also include an identification of difficulties that may be encountered in the future, and a consideration of ways to deal with them. Role play or other forms of behavioral rehearsal are often helpful at this stage, particularly if the person is dealing with a difficult interpersonal situation. If significant problems remain, the last session should also be used to make referral arrangements. Ideally, such arrangements should be discussed in earlier sessions. It might even be helpful for the parishioner to meet with the new counselor before the final session with you. The pastoral counselor and the parishioner could process the experience as part of the final pastoral counseling session. Recognition of one's limitations of time, experience, training, and ability is an indispensable component of the practice of any professional. This is particularly important for the pastoral counselor, since no counselor is able to help everyone who seeks his or her help. Furthermore, if a pastoral counselor is able to provide some help, often supplementary forms of help are required. The need to refer to others does not suggest inadequacy on a pastoral counselor's part. Rather, it suggests that the pastoral counselor is aware of his or her limits and is functioning appropriately within them. Pastoral counselors need to be aware of the resources within their communities. Some of these community resources would include resources for financial counseling, tax advice, legal counsel, medical or psychological assessment, and medical treatment. Often the help that is needed may be available through the local social service agency. While such resources are often rather limited in rural and smaller urban cities, most large metropolitan areas have an abundance of professional services in these areas.